Rocket League is incredibly easy when everything is going your way, and it is extremely difficult when things start to go against you. So in today's video, we'll be discussing the mind games that you can play with yourself to allow yourself to bounce back in any situation you may find yourself in. Now, in order for us to understand all of the things that we can do to help ourselves mentally, we're going to be taking a look at a replay where things start out really well, then go really bad, and then we utilize these mental tricks to help ourselves regain, lock back in, and be able to finish out the game in a very strong manner. So let's go ahead and kick this off and see how well things start. And while we're kind of playing through the early part of this game, let's just kind of discuss why the mental game is such a difficult part of Rocket League. Because first of all, it's just something that is impossible to actively train, right? Like, there's nothing you can do to, like, slowly but surely get better at your mental game other than just constantly telling yourself what to and to not do from a mental capacity. As we get a nice little block on the clear attempt there and stuff in the first goal of the game, like we said, starts off fairly well. But yeah, I mean, overall, Rocket League is such a volatile game from the mental side of things, because there really is no breaks between anything that's going on in a single game. Like, in a lot of other games, you might have these moments where you have some downtime where you can kind of sit back, reset, and kind of understand where things might be going wrong and be able to get yourself back on track. But in Rocket League, it is just go for 5 straight minutes. And it can be very difficult in those 5 minutes to be able to bounce back if things start to go particularly poorly. So as we roll through here, again, this game starts off very well, but the key to having a strong mental game in Rocket League really is just having a very short memory, because things are going to go wrong across a 5-minute game. There's just really no two ways about that. In a game like Rocket League, something somewhere throughout these 5 minutes is going to go quite wrong. But for the first minute and a half here, things are looking quite great. Nothing too bad so far. But when those bad things do happen, you need to be able to just eliminate any thoughts of those bad moments from your mind so that you can just lock back into what you need to do. And we're going to see our first very bad moment right here as we just team pinch this ball perfectly into our top left corner. Absolutely slotted from the squad here, but realistically, I probably should have just left this for my teammate, as it's very obvious that he has the touch here, but, you know, hindsight is 20/20. But when something like this happens, it's now like, oh gosh, that is a horrible goal to concede. Under no circumstances should we be in a 1-goal game here. In fact, we should have been able to transition that ball back into offense fairly easily. So at this exact moment, you just need to be telling yourself, like, yes, that happened, whatever. There is nothing you can do to change what has happened in the past. We made a poor choice, we drove into the wrong spot on the field, and pinched the ball into our own net with our teammate. Yes, it happened, but we can't change it, so why even bother thinking about it? Because there is nothing that thinking about it is going to help. If we think about it and allow the thought about that goal to linger in the back of our mind, our focus drops away from what we need to do to be successful throughout the rest of the game, and we leave ourselves vulnerable to making more mistakes, as we're going to see here. Because although that's what we should do, I can tell you that that is not, in fact, what we did in this situation, as things are only going to get worse for the next minute and a half or so, as we just do not do a good job of bouncing back into this game. Take a good challenge here, but again, what we're gonna see in this next little bit while we're struggling with that thought in the back of our mind, even if we don't think it is in the back of our mind, is us just completely stuck here inside our half. We're going to have a very difficult time getting any kind of clear, a very difficult time getting any kind of control, and a very difficult time just making any real good decisions throughout the next little bit. We're constantly going to be putting ourselves in bad spots, but that's because we kind of go on autopilot because we're not actually focusing on what we need to do to be successful. So you can see right here, we're just getting bumped around, ball out. We're going to get a light clear here, but not a whole lot we can really do with it. We got bumped down the field. And again, this just allows the opponents to get back. And well, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is 100% what happens when our mental starts to go out the window. You start to make plays like this. Because I land here, right? Like, there is nothing I can do to get a good play on this ball. I'm sitting here on 0 boost. My opponent has very clearly just picked up that corner, so he can easily turn on this ball and go play it back downfield. But instead of recognizing that I am pretty much out of this play and realizing, oh, hey, there's a mid boost here, let's just go for that and play in a solid spot while we still have this 1-goal lead and we're still actually in an advantageous position in this game. Instead of thinking of any of those smart things to do, we just try to do too much and end up driving in a complete circle and leave our teammate back in a pretty terrible position. And this is exactly what happens when you just start to not be focused on where you need to be, on what you need to do to be successful. You end up putting yourselves in spots like this. And now we're going to have another moment where we're going to, again, just get a subpar touch. Realistically, we're going to just blast it away from ourselves instead of keeping it close. The ball is going to end up on the goal line, and now we're just completely panicked. Like, none of this is calm. None of this is composed, and that's kind of the danger when things start to go wrong, is you start to lose your composure. Because you start to be worried so much about how bad things are going that you just start to make panic touches. Like right here, we don't need to jump this early. We're making this a lot harder for ourselves to get a good controlled touch because of how early we're jumping here. We 100% could wait a bit longer and allow the ball to come down a little bit more, allowing us to get an easier touch here. But instead, we jump super early and just pop it away from ourselves. Now granted, it's a fairly light touch, so we're going to be able to get back to it. But then because of how far away we are from the ball, we get baited in by this fake challenge and end up flipping forward when we wouldn't really need to, as opposed to being just fully in contact with this ball this whole time and being able to just drive it forward until they actually commit. So very poor decision making here from us, and it's all due to the fact that we are just fully panicked now with how bad things are going. Luckily that ball is not in, but then here's another panic jump. We're finally going to get some boost here as we miss it initially, but we are just fully stuck on our back line here, and this is just absolutely terrible, and we get flicked, and the ball's in our net. And here is another very big sign that your mental starts to go out the window. Your car just starts to not move after you give up goals. You just freeze wherever you are, you let yourself slide across the field, and if you ever see yourself doing that after goals, you need to give yourself some kind of mental motivation to get yourself back in the game, because this is a clear sign that something is going wrong and you more than likely are not playing the game that you want to play, and you're not giving yourself the best chance that you can for you to be successful. And we're going to see one more moment before we finally get out of our own heads. And it's going to be a really, really bad moment. It's not going to take long to get to it. As we go at the field here, possible opportunity. Can't quite get that one on target. Not the end of the world, though. We're going to rotate back here. Teammate gets a decent clear. Again, very poor turn in the midfield. Very, very dangerous to turn there on 0 boost for sure. Again, not really thinking about what's going on. More so just going on autopilot. And then, yeah, here it is. Yeah, this is like very obvious. Like something's going wrong mentally when you just autopilot through this and don't actually position your car for this correctly. And yes, this is probably difficult for a lot of ranks, but for players up in like GC, GC2, this touch is not problematic. This is very easy, safely back out into the corner. Even though we're on 23 boost, not a problem. But instead, we're not thinking about how exactly we need to approach this ball. We go on autopilot, we just jump thinking, meh, it's fine, whatever. We end up missing it, we end up giving up a free goal, and just like that, our 2-goal lead has absolutely disappeared, and we're down by 1 in pretty much the blink of an eye, all from letting a couple of mistakes drag down the level of our gameplay. So at this point, and again, we have the fully frozen car in the after goal moments here, but as we reset, this is where we finally got to ourselves and allowed ourselves back into this game. And that's really what this is about, is when your mental is down, you might as well just forfeit at that point, because very unlikely that you can make any kind of comeback in any situation if your mental is just out the window. But if you can get yourself out of your own head and get your focus back on how to be successful in the game, you are going to have a much better time. So at this exact moment, here's what we tell ourselves. So first things first, we go back to what I talked about initially. Like, look, yes, we're down by a goal. That's not great, but we can't change anything that's happened in this first 3 minutes. Whatever's happened in that first 3 minutes, it's gone, it's in the past, you can't change it, nothing you can do about it. So we finally convince ourselves to not worry about anything that's gone on in the first 3 minutes of this game, because we know there's nothing we can do to change it. At the end of the day, the second thing we can tell ourselves is, look, you're still only down by 1 goal. Yes, you've made these horrible, horrendous mistakes. Yes, that's absolutely terrible. But you're only down by a goal here, so those mistakes are not actually costing you as much as you probably think they are. And even realistically, if we were down like 3-0, we still have 2 minutes left. And no, that's not a ton of time to be sure, but if we look at each of our games as training exercises to help us improve, rather than individual games that we're actually trying to win, then we can look at this and just tell ourselves, look, the first 3 minutes, not great, admittedly. But you know what we can do? The only thing we have control over here is this last 2 minutes and 3 seconds. So why not, instead of being annoyed about all of the things that have gone wrong in this first 3 minutes, why don't we just say to ourselves, look, we have 2 minutes and 3 seconds to play the best game that we can. And if we play the best game that we can for those 2 minutes and 3 seconds, then at the end of the game, we can see where we're at. Who cares what the score is? Score doesn't matter. If we're looking to improve here, then all we want to worry about is how good of a game can we play in this 2 minutes and 3 seconds to give ourselves the best chance to be successful. And when we tell ourselves that, and when we lock in on playing the best game we can for whatever time is left in that game, all of a sudden you can take all of the negative emotions that you're feeling and you can turn them into motivation. You can now be motivated to go achieve the objective that you set for yourself. And that objective more than likely should not be to win that game, but rather just to play the best game that you can in whatever time you have left. And when you shift your focus back to where it belongs and you lock in on what you need to do to be successful, you can turn the game back into a very simple thing. As we get into this final 2 minutes, again, shaking off all of the issues, let's just focus on playing the best game we can. Recognize the ability to come forward here, recognize the opponent in an awkward spot, and just like that, we bounce back, we put the opponents in an awkward position, and we get ourselves back into a tied game only a couple seconds after we were down in the dumps, to be sure. So very important there to be able to bounce back quickly, forget everything that's happened so far, and allow yourself to get back into the game. And then all of a sudden, when you're back in the game, things start to go your way. As granted, were we trying to redirect that? Maybe, maybe not. Do we force out the opponents to have to think that maybe we are touching it? We sure do. So when we do just completely fly past that ball, the ball just bounces into the net, and just like that, within about 30 seconds, we have turned a 3-2 deficit into a 5-3 lead. And this is the biggest reason why mental is so important and why you cannot allow yourselves to fall prey to having a game fall away from you because your mental is just in the dumps. Because Rocket League is a game that can change within the blink of an eye. Again, unlike a lot of other games where if things go wrong over an extended period of time in a match, you're going to have a really hard time coming back. But in Rocket League, the game is so fast-paced. Players are able to do so much with the ball that all you need is for a couple of things to go your way, and all of a sudden you're right back in that game. So don't allow yourselves to get knocked out of the game because you just think, oh my gosh, everything's going wrong. There's no way we're going to win this game. Set your focus back on where it belongs, on just playing the best game that you can play, and then it doesn't really matter what happens, because as long as you're playing the best game that you were able to play, even if you don't win, it now shows you exactly what you need to work on to allow yourselves to be more successful next time. And that's the biggest thing. If you want to rank up and you want to improve in this game, you need to make those steady improvements over time. You're not going to be able to go into every game you play and have everything go perfectly every single time, win every single game that you get into. But you are able to go into every single game and look for where you need to make improvements. Look to understand where you're falling short and where you need to be better. And then you can utilize that information to frame the training that you do, and also utilize that information to understand what you need to be more focused on in the next game that you play. So So make sure in your guys' own games that you really do work on that mental game. Work on telling yourself all of the things that we talked about here today so that you can keep your focus where it belongs and to help yourself improve just a little bit more with every single game you play. Of course, thank you everybody so much for watching. I really do appreciate each and every one of you who made it to this point in the video, and I do hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. If you did, make sure you click that subscribe button right down below so you make sure you don't miss any future Rocket League content. Additionally, if you'd like to be a bit more involved in the community we're building here, feel free to check out my Discord, which I'll have linked down in the description. And as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. See you later, guys.